think we are good to go here. Had some weird business over on the MacBook over there. YouTube Studio knew that I was live, but the preview did not show what I was actually streaming out. It was showing me the thumbnail instead, which is weird, but it seems to be working now that I actually said I was live. So yeah, that's not disturbing at all. But that window seems to indicate that it's working. So hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Welcome to tonight's package development live stream. We're going to ease into doing some stuff by working a little bit on OverrideAudit. It's been a little bit too long since we worked on this, and actually the reason why I instituted weekly live streams way back in the day was to basically force myself to set aside time to do some sort of development on OverrideAudit and other packages I was working on, because otherwise I get lost in working on YouTube videos, helping people on the forum, in the Discord, and so on. So we sort of drifted away from that in playing with a bunch of other things, but it's time to get back to brass tacks. So I have at least one thing that I'd like to do, something that we worked on in a live stream, so far back. I'm not even entirely sure I remember when exactly it was. Actually, I guess we could do something like this. If I was to check on this, oh no, that's not going to work. I have a commit here. Back in January, it looks like, is when this particular thing that we're working on was last worked on. So it's been a while since we've actually worked on this. Which is why I want to make sure I get a release of OverrideAudit out, probably a couple, because Sublime Text 4, or I'm thinking of referring to it as Sublime Text 4K, going to be coming out soon, and that might be an opportunity for us to once again cut ourselves over into Python 3.8 land, amongst other things. And it would be a good time to take that opportunity to hit the brake on that, such as it is. So that is going to be the theory of what we're going to do tonight. And I'm just going to work on, yeah, okay. That seems like it's going to do a thing. I think we're probably just a little something I'm trying out here. And hopefully that's all working good. Seems to be working good. Just double check. Oh, the quality on that one is dialed down a bit. All right, that is totally cool. I think we're ready to dive into actually doing some Sublime Text package development. So, voila. Hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Pardon me just a moment while I click on the button like so, and there we have it. All right, so the webcam was turned off, and I did not notice that previously. We're gonna get that going in just a second there. In the other preview, one of the things I got, and I think I might have mentioned this in another live stream, I got this bad boy. Not this part. This is USB C to B adapter. This tiny little HDMI capture card for the princely sum of about $6, because I got a gift card for, well, basically I won a raffle, if you will, for filling out a survey. And all I had to pay for that was shipping. Works great under Linux. I haven't actually tried it on uh, oh, I know. I did actually try it on Windows as well. I haven't tried it on Mac OS yet, though. It just appears to be a standard webcam, so I was playing with that in OBS and turned my webcam off. Anyway, hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. You can see me now. We're going to be working on some Sublime Text package development here, and as a matter of fact, we're going to be working on OverrideAudit, as we can see here. And it has been, as I said in the introduction, since January that we have worked on this particular thing. We've worked on other OverrideAudit things in the interim, but it's really time to start cutting a release. Let's go ahead and do that as well. I have been working on new stuff in HyperHelp. It's particularly in Snappy, because we have a lot of new dev documentation. Well, we have a lot of new stuff in the API, I should say, that hasn't hit the dev documentation yet, but I'm trying to get everything all synced up in there. So for example, uh, this is a new thing. The ability to get an actual buffer object that represents a particular view, or view.clones for retrieving the list of clones. There's even quite a few of these. I've only done a few, as we can see here. Um, this particular link here is not yet ready for prime time. But as much as I'd like to keep working on that to get things synced up, that's not package development so much as it's looking into the Sublime API and then cross-referencing it, copy, pasting, writing stuff in here. That is does not an interesting stream make. So the first thing we're going to do is sample the tea. That is organic cream of Earl Grey. And we're going to be working on OverrideAudit. Now, in particular, what we're going to be working on is this. This is one of those things from way back when, and could actually check this particular, excuse me, branch out. This is a branch that I rebased off of this one. This is stable represents, pardon me for just a moment. Stable represents the branch that is the latest released version of this thing. Apparently, tags are not shown in here. It's interesting. Let's take a look at that. Is there an item for that? Because I don't remember turning that off, unless it's inside or something. Version 2.2.1, and the next version that comes out is going to be 2.2.2. That is quite. Oh, you know what? It's over here. I forgot. I was fiddling with some stuff. There we go. Little brain fart there. So we're currently at version 2.2.1. Really liking the changes they've made to this. By the way, the edges of the graph and the way the branches are displayed here, matching that particular thing. Visually, I'm really digging on this thing. So that's the latest version of that. And we got a few things in here. One of those things that are going to be in version 2.2 is this. The fixes for um, using automatic package reloader to reload the plugin while we're working on it. Because one of the things that it was doing in its package info class was had this class method inside of the class that would set up a cached version of what the full shipped packages path is, which is going to depend on where you, pardon me, have your copy of Sublime Text installed. Works great except for when you use automatic package reloader because it reloads the main plugin, which reloads this file. Then it also reloads the other files as well to force them to reload. And every time it does that, this gets wiped out, and it does them outside in instead of inside out, if that makes any sense. So uh, by the time it actually calls this init, it calls this init method first, and then the class gets reinitialized, and then this never gets called again because plugin loaded is only called once. So we boosted that out to make sure that we can use this for with automatic package reloader, which doesn't affect anybody but us, but it does make life greater. We modified the reporting so that every time you refresh a report, the cursor jumps back to the top of the buffer because you have a new thing to be looking at. So it makes more sense to do that because that's how actually reloading files works in general, just by using Sublime. The ability to hide unchanged from the override report. Now, this is an issue that was raised by somebody else, and the idea behind this is a new argument to the command that generates override reports that cause it to not display any overrides where the diff says that nothing actually changed. So you can generate an override report and see only things that are actually different and not things that are, overridden but the same, which gives you a better overall picture of in one particular sense of what it is you're actually doing there, right? Because you might want to literally know what overrides do I have in place, and after an update or whatever, you might also have an idea of what overrides do I care about, which ones are different. Anything that stayed the same doesn't matter. Now, of course, this currently doesn't do anything with binary files because they're already not diffed. Um, So we got that going on, and I believe it also makes sure that whether or not the thing changed, if it is an expired override, it has to tell you about it anyway. Add the ability to hide unchanged from package diffs. That's the similar to the previous commit, but this is in the single package diff and the bulk package diff reports, it does the exact same thing, which could also cause it to not actually display anything in those diffs at all. Fix diffs of packages that don't support diffing. This is actually a quality of life thing just in general, because the command was actually allowing itself to be executed in cases where it normally wouldn't be allowed. Now, the actual core command itself would just do whatever the hell you want. If you tell it to diff something that it can't diff because there's not a Sublime package, it's, if you try to diff something in your user package, it would try and it would fail because it expects that there's an underlying package file for it to diff against. Otherwise, why would you be diffing an override, right? All the ways to get into that functionality from the user's perspective, from the context menus and such, automatically take that into account and don't do anything. They won't let you diff something that isn't potentially diffable, but the command itself is something that you could bind to a key, so it makes sense for it to be able to do that, and particularly because otherwise the external code needs to know whether or not it can do that, and that is a non-obvious thing. Us having all the add information pre-calculated, it makes more sense for us to do that. So that's definitely what's going into or version 2.2.2 when it drops. But we're also working on this. And now this is something I said we worked on way back in January, and I kind of set it aside. The idea behind this particular diff, and if we check, I am in refreshing. Where does that fall in this list? Let's see. There's a couple of things where pre comes off of that. Oh, right. This is the functionality for freshening expired unchanged overrides all in one shot instead of having to do it a bunch of times. What's the version we currently have running? Let's jump ourselves over to the context menu changes, and we'll also, we'll just to be safe, we'll quit and restart that bad boy and do a little bit of that. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Okay. So we're in that particular version now. Come on, man. Is that how we're going to play that now? I can't move that over? All right. The idea behind this is that we should be able to say, whoops. Oh, that's what I meant to do. If we wanted to create a package report, the context menu in here now has only our commands in it. It doesn't have, the origami commands, the submerge commands, SFTP, whether or not word wrap is turned on, because we carefully make sure all of our stuff is a short enough thing that word wrap isn't, well, that's something that I added in there. But copy, paste. So we have copy and select all. We don't have cut in here because this is read only. We don't have paste because these are read only. We don't need to have the help files in there, obviously. We don't need to have any of those or reveals in sidebar. This is just customized menus. And also this reminds me that there's other stuff that we need to do here. We need to do this for tab menus and not just our menus. Someone in the Discord mentioned a potential problem with this. Let's go ahead and, for our purposes here, close other tabs just to shorten that up. We do not need that one, and cancel on that one. Why is this different? It is not. Oh, I'm probably typed something funky in there. Similarly, let's go ahead and close other tabs there as well. This is a tab that I have been carefully shepherding for quite some time, because it has some functionality that we're going to be using in upcoming streams to finish off some stuff that we were working on way back before January, before we worked on this. The ability to make patches of your overrides. Probably check into that problem too. So what this commit actually does is replace the context menu in our reports and in our diffs, so that our commands are the only ones that appear. The other commands don't appear in there. And because of that, normally these commands would have that OverrideAudit prefix on them. Now they don't. And we have some commits related to this particular thing. If we were to look here, there's quite a few of these. Now, this is what the menu looks like inside of reports. So we can see that we have all of our stuff, and then standard um, context menu items there. There's another one of these. Actually, we could probably do a little something like this. I, there should be, I would have thought, another menu, but perhaps not. This class, if we even do a little bit of that, this is the context helper class where all of our commands pull information from this. It allows them to know if they're being opening a context menu on a package name or override name, and if it's an override name, what the package is, all the information about that sort of stuff. We can see that here: package for point, override at point, the package that's associated with a particular override, if you happen to be doing that. Is this a report? Does it contain expired stuff? Blah, blah, blah. One of the things we added in here was caption prefix, which returns either an empty string or the string override audit. And then all of these commands were modified so that instead of returning their static string, they return this instead, so we can cram some prefix on there if we want to. And I'm sure I had a reason for why I did it this way back in January, but I kind of don't like this one right now. Um, I think there might be a better way to do this. I think instead of getting a prefix and then cramming it in there, I think what we want is instead a method where we can pass what we want the thing to be in, and it will prefix it or not as appropriate on the way out. Um, I think that is what we want to try and pull off here. And then these will be a little bit nicer. And of course, we got a lot more to do with these things. So I guess one of the problems or the questions that we had about this was in this menu, the commands don't have to say override audit in front of them because those are the only commands that appear in here. Those are the only ones we need to see. But in the tab menus, all the other commands are there. So our name still needs to be there. So we probably don't need to tweak those ones at all. Um, so do we want to sort of fix that up? I kind of think we do. What was that thing actually called again? It was called caption prefix. Oops. So this is where that is actually implemented as far as that particular commit is concerned. Now, I think what we want, and maybe an issue with this, perhaps the reason why I didn't do this that particular way was because of these arguments that we get here. And as a matter of fact, because we're actually dealing with tab menus here, we might need to look into that issue that was mentioned on Discord. Let me just take a quick little peek at that. It's been very busy over here, I must say, with some syntax action going on. What area was that in? Not in there. Package development. If I remember all of the places where oh, that was yesterday. That was today. It can't be that one. Oh, right. It scrolled itself up for no particular reason. It's not in that one, though. Is it down here? Here we go. Maj HD said there's a small error in override audit that triggers when you open the tab menu on the overridden file tab when there's an image tab before it. So open an image, open an override, open the tab context menu. Probably related to indexing window.views in group. Possibly, and depending on what this looks like, we could be in some states of unhappiness because images in tabs are represented by image sheets and not text sheets like files are, and views in group wouldn't return it because there aren't any views in group. This could potentially be a Sublime Text problem. I don't know that there's anything we technically can do about it. unless there's a sheets in group. So maybe. All right. In group 0, there's 2. Okay. So we might be able to tweak this up. So let's see. Open an image. Okay. Here's an image. Then let's move that over there for the time being. So here's an image of me face. I should probably let's move that over for just a sec so I can actually stop snapping, dude. There we go. Then it says open and override. So that would be, oh, what's this? Submerge 3. Oh, yeah, it Submerge slightly unhappy about sheets as well. And check that out. Compiled code has the location of where the package was when it was packaged up. Interesting. I guess if you package up the compiled Python files, you end up with debug information for a different thing. Default, oops, pardon me, default paste from history is an example of an override. So let's see. When you open the tab menu on the overridden file tab, when there's an image tab before it. So this is an override. Oh, list index out of range. True that. Okay. So we're getting image sheets and text sheets. I'm assuming our issue in this particular sense, we trace this through, is visible in core, in view target, in latline 1089. Man, this is big. Here we go. So if we were to print view group index like so, reload the plugin, or the whole package rather, we should see it got a view group 0 index 1. But if we were to do window.views in group, yeah, we end up, whoops, group 0 because that's the group it was in. The only index of this is 0, but this is actually 1. So we actually want this to be sheets in group. And as a matter of fact, let's do run a little check here. And I'm doing this in find here because this development build doesn't have, I think there's some issues with find in files. There's only one place where this appears. And just to show what I'm talking about there. If I searched for this in all of the Python files here, it searched 32 files. Okay, maybe this particular one might not be actually doing that, but this is something that was reported and I was noticing it earlier. Maybe it only affects Windows because I was on Windows at the time. It'd be interesting. But it seems to match all the appropriate things. So anyway, if we change this to get the target view specified by group and index if needed. Okay, that should not be in there either. Oh, but that's because it's associating it incorrectly, right? So we may have other issues here. Yeah, image sheet has no thing setting. So this needs to return none if it's not a text sheet. Right. Okay. But that fixes, oh, I would have thought that would have fixed that. Yeah, let's reload this whole thing and make sure. text sheet object. Oh, right. It's returning a sheet. Okay. So I guess the issue we want to check into here is this is something that appears a bunch. We're assuming it can always return a view. Let's take, for example, tab context menu. Create override, edit override is something that should appear in here. So it gets a group of -1 and index of -1. So if we were to look for that command, edit override command, really? Oops, that's interesting. That command doesn't work inside of an image sheet either. That's probably an issue that we could provide. Is enabled is going to call this. So that's interesting because the context helper context just to double check this here. View context gets this information, which is going to be calling view target. If view is none, call that. So possibly I guess the only thing we can really do is double check it, right? Yeah, that seems to make the most sense, I think. So let's go ahead and close that for now so we don't get lost on that bad boy. Close that out. So we get the window for the view that was provided, which could, I mean, that part, oh, sorry. This is the text command. I mean, that clearly triggers for this thing, right? So if we clear that console, it does not trigger in that particular item. Okay, that's good. So we know that this command can only trigger for actual views. Okay, that's good. I probably should have given that a little bit more thought. That means I don't have to worry about it triggering it on there. The reason this isn't working is because that's returning sheets in group, but it needs to use sheets in group to get the sheet and then pull the view out of it. And I think text sheet. Oh, that's not even in there, right? Sheet.view. Maybe none if the sheets and image preview of the view has been closed. So I think we can short circuit this quite nicely. Like so. So that should resolve that particular problem, I would think. We don't need to worry about that. And there's the commands. Now that should actually be triggering there as well, but it's not crashing, so that's something. But if I did this and then said diff it, it does diff paste from history the way it should. So it's that part's working now the way we want it to. See, and this is an example of that. So it seems like this isn't something that I can fix because it's clearly not executing the command. Um, and it doesn't appear in the menu, and this print doesn't trigger. So there's not a lot we can do about that. It only seems to do that from text commands. Whoops, that's not what we want to do. So now that'll work. As long, if that's before, it doesn't. Okay, so but perfect. That is going to solve this particular issue. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I think what we actually want to do here, we got two unstaged files. What the? Oh, right. That's from the other branch. So let's say we stash that. Check out that one. Stashes are currently hidden, which is irritating. There we go. There's the stash, so let's apply that bad boy. That didn't seem to do squat, huh? That's weird. That changes there. We're on pre blah blah blah. So let us also check out the change log in the messages 2.2.2. Okay. Let me just very quickly. That is not interesting. That's the one I'm looking for. So menus, if causing errors when image sheets are open in the window. I'm going to add that there. These are preparing us for the next release. And we can actually change this. If the tab prior to an override tab was an image or HTML sheet, I'm going to guess because that's also not view sheet. The context menu items in tabs would not display correctly and could cause an issue. Cause what? Now let's say this. Fix the context menu in tabs, potentially displaying errors in the console if the tab prior to an override tab was an image or HTML sheet, which throws off the view index calculation. Okay. We got that. So over here, we have stuff we're going to change. We're going to modify this changelog entry like so. Oh, hang on a sec here. Una momento. Thusly. And so we're going to stage that one. This is the message file that will be displayed by package control when the package gets updated. We want that one in here. This is the actual fix, where instead of using views in group, we're getting sheets in group because the index that we get is actually a sheet index and not a view index. And then we have to call .view on it, but the menu, as we saw, won't automatically populate for anything other than text commands, at least for our commands, I guess, because our commands are text commands, so they automatically won't appear on image sheets or HTML sheets. So that is cool. That is a file from the other branch. We don't care about that. And we could say something like fix view index errors if images are open. When our command is invoked, when displaying, so let's say it this way, our entries in the tab context menu could cause errors to be thrown in the console and the command to be unavailable in the menu if the tab prior to a report or I'm assuming the exact same thing would happen there, if the tab prior to a report or an override was a non-text sheet, such as an image. This is because our command gets told what sheet index it is in the group, but we were using window dot views in group to look up the group. We now use window dot sheets in group instead, so that the index we're given is always valid. And normally I don't subject you to having to watch me write commit messages for this sort of thing. They should both be the same, right? I would think. So let's go ahead and drop that bad boy. Yes, please. But what we want to do is this. So that our item follows along with that particular one. We're also going to need to fiddle faddle that one around too, but I'll do that one later. And it makes life a little bit easier for me. Normally what I would do is just a small short commit message and then take it from there. But if I do that and then after a rebase, then life gets more complicated for me. So sorry. So now we're actually in a good state here for continuing on with what we were doing. And just for the sanity's sake, we might even just quit and restart that just to make for absolute certain that it's going to do exactly what we want it to in that particular situation. Okay, so now we can close that. Hello, face. You can go away too. Now back to what it was that we were originally trying to do, which was this stuff here. And if we were to look at, so again, this is the menu that we have created. Let's turn that off. We created our own custom context menu. Our code actually applies that as a setting. So there's a couple of things that are actually in this. Can't actually see that there now, can we? No, we need to go back to the Files tab. So when we generate, for example, a report, one of the things we do, and we'll do that again. That's a really handy little button there for this sort of thing, isn't it? When the report is actually generated and we set the content into the view, one of the settings that we set is now this context menu setting so that inside of reports that will happen. We're not doing that inside of overrides because overrides are just standard text files. You could be using any sort of package or tool to be working with your Python files. We don't want to get in the way of other things. But for our reports, we definitely don't need anything like this in here. And then any command that could potentially appear in said menu needs to be modified so that its description method, if it happens to be called, includes the package prefix of OverrideAudit if it's not inside of that menu. Which is coming from this caption prefixing. So all of these commands that we tested here have this. They calculate their own thing. Remember, the description method in a command is only executed for commands that appear in a menu when the menu doesn't have a caption, which none of these do. That gets it to ask us what our caption should be so that we can modify our thing as appropriate. So for example, edit override, it would have the actual name of the override that it's going to edit in that particular case. So our commandy thing here needs to be clever enough to make sure that in our reports, when it determines its caption, say for example, diff override, it should include the override audit bit there, not in a report, because in a report it's definitely we're the only commands that we have in our menu. But for inside of an override, or if the user adds this menu item themselves, not inside of a report, this would trigger that up. And we're doing that through this, where this caption prefix method, and this is why I wanted to do the other fix first, because just to make sure that that doesn't change this. That all of the methods in this, oops, pardon me. All of the methods in this context helper class, as I said, are specifically designed to work with context menus in all of our commands, specifically text commands, pretty sure. That's currently all we're using things for, but we're doing things like editing diffs, editing overrides, generating reports into buffers where we might need to modify things. All of that information applies here. So this sort of abstracts all of that stuff away to make the other code nicer. And to make that as seamless as possible, all of these methods are meant to be invoked with whatever arguments you'd like to give it, but many of them, such as view target, view context, oh, that one not particularly, but it does call view target, which is why all of these items have keyword args crammed onto the end. Everything eventually, one way or the other, tends to filter down to view target, this thing we just did that tries to figure out what view the command is actually operating on. Because if I right click in this file right now, this is the file that this command that we're creating is going to operate inside of. This is the view. So we would just be told a view, and we don't need to do anything special. But as we just saw in the tab context menu, all of these items get these items here that say group and index. We set them to -1. If when the command is actually executed, as we saw in the console, Sublime will actually set the group and index arguments to your command if you have them in the menu here. It doesn't just do it automatically to the file group, i.e. 0, 1, 2, and the index of the tab 0, 1, 2, that is the tab that was clicked on. So even though I'm over here, if I right click on that, the command, when it gets executed, will have a group of 1 and a index of 3 to indicate that the third tab in the second file group is the one that is the command is actually going to be executing inside of. And that's easy enough to calculate, but we have so many commands that we want to do this. Do we really want to be doing that in all of them? No. So this code here says that return the view that was provided if the group is -1, which means that we don't know what it is, which would be the default as we can see here. So if we were to execute the command from this menu, for example, this one's not a tab, Sublime's not going to fiddle those values around. So in fact, it doesn't even get passed, but its default is -1, so it knows it's the view that you right-clicked in. Otherwise, get the sheets in the group and then get the view associated with it, which is why we wanted to fix that before we continue on to do this thing. The good way, I would say, and this is probably why I didn't do this before, let's go ahead and do that so we can find this thing again, is caption prefix says if the group is -1 and we have a context menu setting, then we don't want any sort of prefix. Specifically, this would actually probably be verifying that it's our menu somehow. I don't know that that's necessarily necessary, such as it is. You could unset that setting and get the default context menu back if you wanted to. So we probably want to still have those items in that context menu for that particular purpose. Maybe we want to, have that as a setting, or have it fall back. So if the user does something to replace this, or some other package sets its own context menu for some reason in a view that it doesn't know what it is, that those commands will still be available. In those particular cases, it returns back a prefix of nothing. Which is an indication that this is a right click inside of a view that has a context menu setting that we applied, probably because our command is the one that's going to be executing. So don't provide a prefix. But in other cases, i.e. in tabs, it would have that, or the setting isn't set, then we want that prefix. Well, I think what we really want is something that is prefix caption instead of caption prefix, and it takes all of these arguments, but it also takes actually I'm gonna tweak it up at the call point. We don't want to get the prefix and then add it. We want to just know this is the stuff that we're interested in, and then also you call a method and it would return self.prefix caption. Here's the thing and here's the rest of the arguments. I think these all have a description of that, because that could make life a lot nicer, I think. It looks like they do. And presumably the reason why the description thing has that is because there's just so many commands there. And we're going to call this and pass it anyhow, right? What is the best way, do you think, to actually tweak that particular thing? What I the reason why I'm waffling, or probably it doesn't make sense per se, is because all of these things, or at least a large number of them, like this one doesn't, but this one sometimes needs to know, or it knows, it should know. Oh, that's this one here. Yeah, just to look at this. This particular command for editing an override can do a couple of things. If the reason that you did this came from settings in the view, like for example, if you were looking at the diff of an override, this is the thing where we do view package file and then paste from history. If I right click in this, it says diff this override, revert this override, delete this override, because this is the file that we're dealing with. We don't care. We don't need to be told anything different than this is an override, take these actions. If you do it on the tab, it does the same. From over here, it does the same. This is the thing that you're trying to do it on. That is the override. But if we were to create an override report and right click on it here, Now it says edit, override, paste from history, and diff, paste from history, and revert and delete. And it would do the same for each of these things, because if there's multiples of them and you hit it with the menu, you want to make sure you're getting the right one. So we get that little bit of clarification going on in there. So this has some of these commands have several different ways they might return this. They might have, as we see here, if it doesn't have any way to know, then it should have that particular, or doesn't have to put the name in it, but we still need to put the prefix on the front. But if we actually know what override we're dealing with, then we can actually include the name in, but we still need the stub. Otherwise, we need that bit. So it would be really, really great if we could just have a self dot prefix caption that takes some string and then as many arguments as you want to format that thing in, and then keyword args, and it could either return the string as it was originally gotten or add the prefix onto it instead, um, but in a way where the code here looks a little bit nicer. Now, the easiest way to do something like this would be literally to pass in this, well, not that, that's not an example. Pass in this as the argument so that the string gets formatted as it's going in, and then it just gets the keyword args. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even need keyword args, does it? Because it's calling caption prefix. And that's interesting. Is there an instance where we're calling caption prefix with a group? Because if not, why the hell did I even put that in there? Which is its own interesting little thing, isn't it? So let's see. This is an issue with doing something like this, 8, 9 months after. There's the definition. Everywhere that it's called currently, it doesn't take an argument there. I must have had a reason for why I provided that. Maybe that was a bug on my part, because the keyword args that are provided, which also aren't even being used in here. Maybe that's just because every other thing also already has that. But all of these sort of, I guess, assume that anything that's going to invoke them has already looked up. No, the description is happening inside a particular view. Oh, I see. This is just a stub name. It gets the view context, and then it can either provide it or it just returns the stub. This is a very complicated little jiggy that I put in here. It's almost worth, let's just do that. It's telling me that I'm live on my channel right now, but that little mail icon is vexing me, man. Mm. This code, I mean, it works. It doesn't look tight or elegant or clean or whatever. I really wish I knew why I had done it that way. Probably should have listened to the January live stream while I was doing this thing, huh? Well, I guess we can give a little bit of a test to this thing, right? I'm gonna squinch that down a little bit to have a little bit more room here. That's nice. I kind of like that. So, shoot, I already forgot what the dang thing was called, man. Caption prefix. Okay. I'm guessing the *** KW args is in here at the very least because at some point I might have wanted to invoke view target and I decided I didn't need to. So we could add that in if we need it. And we could also add that in if we need it too. Yeah, let's see what we've got. So I think that this should not be. This is using the view that it was invoked inside of to figure out if it has the menu, but we already know that's not the case when you do it on a tab. So why did I think that was a good idea at the time is the real question here. Let's open context create override as the file that we want to be looking at. And not that one. So it's description method. And in order to test this one, we need to have a package file open that's not an override like this one. So this gives you this override this resource and override this resource, like we see it right there. And those ones are examples of ones that have to have the prefix on them because we have the full menu, right? It's only reports that don't have that custom context menu in there. From here, when I do it, in that case, we always want that to be the case, right? From a tab menu, think about this logically. From the tab context menu, we always want to have the name on it because it's not the tab context menu where we're doing something special. It's only inside of the actual target view itself. So we never need to worry about that. We only need to worry about self.view. So, um, actually, we could say menu equals self.view.settings.get context menu and empty string, and the name of the menu that we included. We're going to assume we don't want a prefix if this is the case. If override audit in menu, that means that we're in a view that has a context menu set and the name of that menu file includes the text override audit, so we don't want this, so we just return back the caption that we were given. Otherwise, we return back what the other one returns, which is override audit, a colon and a %s, and then a bang and a caption like this. So that should be okay. And then in context create override, let's say we don't call prefix equals that. We don't want to include the prefix here. We don't want to include the prefix here. We don't want to include that there. In fact, we might not even need to do this, but I like to make sure that it is going to do what we like. So here we would return self.prefix caption that. And this place, maybe we want a shorter name for this, like self.caption or something. Okay, so, and this is probably a bad idea for this particular command. Because for this one, this is never going to happen. This is why I say not every command technically needs to have this done, because if it's not something that's available from the menu inside of a report, then what's the point of this? Because it would have the standard menu. We wouldn't have included uh, this setting here to set the custom menu. So it doesn't even need to, well, it's going to call this, but it's always going to come back with um, the version where we add this in. But this does ensure, because one of the things that we can do here, or that the user can do, is that they can create their own override audit report.sublime menu file in their user package, put whatever the commands they want in there if they want extra commands. And in that case, maybe they want to put one of those commands in there for some reason. Some of them don't make any sense, like the one we're working on right now. But I mean, it's also good to have everything working the same way. Makes life a little bit nicer to look at, I find. So that should theoretically have no effect on anything. We reloaded that. So that's always going to have the caption on. What we could actually do here is checking prefix on and mod that with captions. We can see if it ever gets called. Checking prefix on override this resource. And it's getting called, but we don't actually, the thing doesn't actually appear in the menu, or it's disabled itself because this this particular command, if we were to look at it, it is enabled, only tells it to be enabled in certain situations. If it's not enabled, it's not visible. If it's not visible, it doesn't matter what this thing returns. You're never going to see it anyway. From in here, we see that. Actually, we might say, let's add some extra printing in here. Custom context menu in a report in this case, and no prefix, oops, needed, or a couple of things we might put in there. So no prefix needed for that particular one. No prefix needed there either, but we're not actually seeing it, so we don't care what it's doing. So I think that's cool. Now what we actually need is something that would be visible in an actual report. So we need to do something similar to this, to something that actually appears inside of this report command. And that would be the revert override command. So let's open revert override.py and find its description. So much like the last one, let's just stick that over there for a second to look at it. We don't need that per se. We do get the view context for this thing. So anywhere where prefix exists, we don't need to do that anymore, right? So we don't need that, and we don't need that, and we don't need that, and we don't need that. If that's the case, whoops, I bumped that one. I didn't mean to. Let's do that. So the stub is, oh, actually the stub is different in that case, isn't it? Yeah. Let's move that back to where it was. So it looks like that. So we would say, let's just snake that out of there, shall we? Prefix, revert this override, and here we prefix that, and here we prefix that. Reloads. So move this one back over here. For something that actually is an override, which doesn't include this thing, but we do need one, so that would be our paste from history. Thus, inside of here, we see it saying the prefix, and we can see there no, well, it says no prefix is needed, but that's weird. Let's clear that console. I may have inadvertently done that in a dumb way. Wait a minute. Revert this override. Still has some caption in there. You know what? I'm gonna quit just for the sake of sand. I'm gonna quit that and I'm gonna restart that bad boy like so. I gotta see what plugin I made that's doing that because that's been bugging me for a few days now. Can't even remember why I did that. No prefix is needed on revert this override, but yet there still is one. If we were to create a bulk diff of a single package and the package was default, if I right click on that, oh yeah, I guess the debug log is just stupid. This is a custom context menu in a report, so indeed, it seems to work the way one might like in there. Refresh bulk diff, override. We can revert the thing, and it has the appropriate name there. That's actually working pretty good, I think. Let's fix this. The number of times I have spent digging through trying to figure out a bug only to discover that my debug logic for tracking the thing is what was actually the problem. So that seems, if I reload this, no prefix, custom thing in a report, but prefixing needed in that one. So this actually makes this kind of nice. Now this name is kind of gross. So we might change this from prefix caption to caption. And do that. So yeah, I know, but that's okay. I'm glad that that actually worked as good as it did. Actually, we should probably do this. Oh, whoops. That is not what I intended to do. There's a couple of places where this exists. There and there is that one, and those. So that is not an override, but it's also not displaying an error. That's not an override. It's not displaying an error. In here, they are prefixed and we're not getting an error. In here, refresh, that's a bulk diff refresh. This is revert. Yeah. One other thing that occurred to me is having purposely disabled entries in this thing with captions that sort of set them apart. So there could be like an entry that says report with a separator and then this and then overrides and a sep thing and that. I don't know if that necessarily is a good idea or not. But okay, let's clean that up. I like that, I do. So everything needs to have this sort of style now. So let's also redact that one. We'll put that one over here. Close that one. Close that one. Close that one. Okay, so I think let us do a little bit of this. So leave that one alone. That one's currently untracked because it's part of the other branch. So we'll need to swing by and fix that one when the time comes. should be all of the commands, right? And we just got to run through all of these things. And again, do we need to do this for all commands? Is there any situation in which you could toggle between a diff or an override? I mean, again, this comes down, I guess, to the idea of um, if all of the commands are the same, then no matter which one we copy as a base when we create a new one, we always have a good template. Also, it sets us up for the idea that maybe we have our own custom menu in overrides as well, that contains just the some entries, and we tell the it would be like it could be like an optional thing. And I'm always sort of looking for those future ideas. Um, so we just need to let's grab a little bit of this action. So we would probably pull that out and then say that, and next. This one's already done, and we need to fix this one. So let's see. Prefix, prefix, prefix. None of those need to be there. So if that went away, then that would go away. And we could do that. And that's prefix. So we want that one to go away. And then we put that in. So if we look for prefix, we don't find it. So that one's probably cool. This one doesn't even have a description method. That's interesting. This one doesn't appear in a context menu. So I guess that's something to ponder for a future time. I imagine this one is similar. Yeah, that one doesn't have one either. Modify mark, that's something that's used internally by commands to modify things, those little marks that appear next to things in override reports, like these. Or if there's an X, there'd be like an X in front of one of them if in red, and even in this color scheme, if it was expired. This command is used for that, so it's not actually in a menu per se, so we don't need to worry about that. Here's one. We don't need prefix, and it's in those two places only. So remove that, remove that, oops, wrap it, and go like so. And wrap it, go like so. And prefix. Again, we give a little test here, only in the one place. So that's just to make sure the stub of every command has the correct thing. So we just wrap that and wrap that. We're good. A couple of them here. Get rid of those. And that. No description method in diff single override. Oh, that's right. Some of these commands are wrappers. There is actually, you can see that there. This thing can potentially, it generates diff reports, but this particular version of it is for prompting you if you didn't already have arguments, so it doesn't appear in the context menu. Oops. This one also is similar. Create the diff report by spitting off a thread. Diff package has one, and it's only used in the stub. So we get rid of that. Whoa, oh, shoot. Get rid of that. We could actually also do this too. Shoot, probably should have did it the other way. There and there. And then we can paste them in at once. Ooh, look at all the time we saved by manipulating the selection in a funky way. Probably could have done that a little bit nicer. This one appears there and there, so we get rid of that. And close that one. That was an easy one. And okay, a couple of places. It's actually kind of nice. Kind of like this one. This currently is looking a lot nicer, I think. Oops, don't do that. You don't want to do that though. Yeah. This is the bit where we do that, and so that if I had more wherewithal, I could use power edit tools or multi-edit utils. Power cursors, multi-edit utils, they let you pause the current cursor and then move around and then flip-flop back between them. And then I wouldn't have to use the mouse for that, but then it would require me to learn a bunch of new stuff, which is uncool. That is creating an override by actually prompting you. There's a few of these. The context create override command wraps this one, which is why this one doesn't appear in the menu, which is this one right here, right? Which is the one we already did. So theoretically, in the world of the theoretical, we're done. Who's scared? Oops. That's looking nice. They have items in there. They don't have items in here. In the context menu, there's an issue. In the tab context menu, this is probably what the difference between this and the other method that I did is they had that default argument of group of -1. That is intriguing. See. Oh, haha, clever. If this is the view that has it, then that works. And if this is the view that has it, then it doesn't. This is the thing that I was just talking about before, which is the idea that when this view is the one that has the focus and you right click on a tab, the view that is known to the command as the self.view is the one that has the focus, but because this is a tab context menu, the command is invoked with the group, file group, and the index, and you should use that to look things up, which is why the core has the item for view target. And in order to call view target, let's zoom this one for a second. We're going to look for, oops, don't do that. In order to call view target, you need the group and the index, which default to -1 if they're not provided. Right? Which is why there was some placeholder code in the other version of that thing in caption prefix. It has group equals -1 there, but also nothing ever set that. And in fact, that method was never called with any arguments at all, which means that it was always doing the same thing that this one is doing theoretically. So the other one was technically broken, and probably we paused at the point where something more magical was going to happen there, right? What we need for something like this is this. We can test it in one place and then go through all that stuff we just did a moment ago. If we did that, then we can say view equals self.viewTarget. Any arguments we got that wasn't the caption. And then instead of saying self.view, we use view. As a matter of fact, we might say the target is the view target, and then get the target settings and do things based on that. And view target has those things defaulting to -1. So theoretically, that should do effectively something, nothing. If this was the thing and we right click on that, oh, then something real unfortunate happens. Those captions aren't what we would expect to see. Those ones are not what we would expect to see. The description method is now effectively broken. Just to verify that. Target equals self.view. If I did that, that should go back to doing what it was doing before. Edit, override. Those ones aren't prefixed. These ones are. And from there, they are. See how it has the prefix and it has that text there, right? Boop. This thing is eating an error somehow. That problem still exists, the thing we were trying to fix, but that does prove this. Now, what we're seeing there, actually, see if I do that and then this. Oh, is it just going to work now? That's weird. Oh, because I didn't reload. I don't think. That's creepy as all get out. Edit, override, delete, override. And here, it's still not doing the right thing, though. It's because we're not actually calling it with arguments yet, right? But that does prove a thing. So let's say the diff command is the one we're going to fiddle with. So if we came over to here, diff override command, and we look for the description method. And did ** kwrgs like this, then in theory, oh yeah, see now it's doing the same thing again as it was doing just a moment ago. And when we see this override audit refresh report, it doesn't have the name that we would expect. It doesn't have the prefix. That means that the description method is effectively doing nothing. And the default description method just returns the name of the command converted from snake case back to camel case so that there's something there. Let's test this thing. Print caption in that stir target. Let's see. Doesn't trigger at all, huh? Something about self.viewTarget causes an error in a way that it gets caught, and Sublime just returns the default, but it's not displaying any stack trace that says what this is doing wrong. So that's weird. That, and then stir, view, and group and index. -18 -1 -1. What one might expect. And 18 1 3 0 1 0 1 2 3. So it's getting the right arguments. Group's not -1. Window is this because theoretically possible for you to not have a window associated with it in some cases. But it does have one. But for some reason, when we have that in there, the description method does not continue running. Let's jump back to self.caption. That's this one, right? If we print got target, print got menu, we could at least see if it was doing anything in there. No, we see it saying caption in view target, view window, view target, view window. I gotta say that is kind of confusing. Let's go ahead and clear that console so we can see that one more time just from the tab. Doesn't get triggered at all. Oh, now it does. That's weird. A lot of commands, and they all get, it's calling view target for that view and that. It knows the window. So if we look here, which various things are calling it. This is the only one. Okay, this is the only one that's calling it here. caption in is that one, caption in view 18. It calls view target, but it doesn't print got target. Boom goes the dynamite. View target is missing one. Oh, for the love of Pete. Now, why was that eating the thing? That was probably very obvious to everybody that's watching. But why was that? Why was it not? I guess it wants to make sure that the description method can't do something crazy. That is, oh, that is unfortunate. That's what that is. Okay. So if I right click on this tab, it is prefixed. Inside of here, they are prefixed. Over here, it's not. If I did this, it's not. And here's the big thing. Last time we did this, when I right clicked on this menu, they weren't prefixed because this was the active view and it has a context menu that's custom. But there is diff this override, the one that we fixed, but revert and delete were not. So this does indeed resolve the issue. So we'll go like that and like that. Is that the right one? Yes. And that. Reload. And let's close that one actually and bring this one over. This is the new exemplar for how this should look. We need to call that. Do we need to call that? No, we don't need to call that. That's not what we did. Crap. What did we do? Diff this override. Yeah, that's totally this thing. I'm not going to lie, I kind of lost track of what I was doing while I was trying to figure out why the hell that wasn't doing what I thought it should. That's embarrassing. Anybody remember that can jump in the chat what I did to this besides that? Because I could have swore all I really fixed was this. In which case, what's different about that and edit? Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. Diff this override. That's totally this one, right? Diff this override. Oh, right. We got to call it with keyword args on the end. Phew. Okay. Thank the heavens. Went a little bit crazy there. All the places where this is called needs to have that now. And that's correct, right? Okay. So all we got to do is for every one of these that was previously opened, except for diff override, which is the one we just fixed. Those are ones that have their own custom little description. Whoops, that's not one. That's one. These are all the commands. We need to find do all the calls to self.caption. There's one. And there's 3. Jump down here. there, and it's a couple of them in this one. Whoa. Oh, right. Don't do that. Just do that. I may have screwed that up on one of the other ones. We'll see in just a moment. Do, 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 do. And one more. Well, two more, right? Let's just double check over here. We don't call caption prefix. We call that with the thing, and delete does the same, and diff externally does that, and diff override does it, diff package does it. Still correct. Still correct. And there, and there, and there, and there. Well, I guess we probably want to fix that business. But working. And that's the untracked file, which, all things being equal, again, we're going to need to tweak this up. This should have a description method. And it's kind of crunky, such as it is. But once we do this, we can sort of rebase the other one off of that one and tweak that one up while we're remembering to do it. But okay, let's see. All prefixed. And there is actually a separator there, but in this dark thing, wow, can you not see that very good at all? And from over here, all of the menu items do not have a prefix. If I right click on that, they all have a prefix now where a moment ago they didn't. Even packages. I think that is working the way we like. So what we would do, stage all, which I believe does not stage that one file that was untracked. No, it did. Well, don't. So the summary is all of those, but there's still one untracked file. And let us take a look at this. In which we're investigating changes the way context menus work. What we have here is the idea that in reports we would provide our own context menu setting which hides all the various irrelevant commands in there. To facilitate this, we're in our commands description methods to be able to return both versions that have an override audit prefix as well as not, so commands that appear in menus inside of reports don't have a redundant title. This command implements a version of this, more still to do, only the one command supports it, for example. Not entirely true. I went back and fixed that, as we saw, after I originally wrote that commit. And I probably did the thing that I'm about to do right now, which is wonder why, if all of those files are staged, why does that say nothing to commit? Did I unstage everything when I did not mean to? That's weird. Huh. Look, now there's 12 staged, one unstaged file. That's some funky business right there. I'm gonna look back at the track and see what I did there because it was probably something dumb, whatever it was. Oh yeah, including this. Do not check that in. Thank you, please. The console will love you. So let's go back and this. Oops. Stage that as well. So one untracked thing that we're gonna fiddle with. It's got a lot of stuff to do with it. which maybe we'll start working on in the upcoming streams. If I start planning out these things a little bit better, I wouldn't have to worry about my thumbnails at the last minute. We have a new caption. Oh, actually, this is something that is not invoked anywhere else, right? Only appears in the one place. So we can do that as well. Really make that nice and clean. And then we can stage that hunk as well. And now amend the previous commit. Okay. Now, other thing we do have to, and I'm not, this is the thing where I'm not entirely sure. We could create a package report and an override report and a, whoops, and a, I see what I did there. Bulk diff of a single package, say default, and let's say a bulk diff of all packages, excluding unchanged. All of the items in these menus appear to be what we would like to see. So I think I did actually, yeah, I did update all of those. Gonna need some magic to do with this. I think dependencies are gonna fall out of the package report list unless I modify this to look for them in the lib folders. So that's interesting. Actually, it looks not too shabby, to be perfectly honest. I got more things in here that I forgot to do stuff with that I forgot about. But in any case, let's say we say, pardon me, use custom context menus in reports. In report views, and again, this is one of those things where I wouldn't normally subject anybody to watch me entering a commit message, but I'm going to be rebasing something in a moment, and I want to make sure that I don't screw stuff up by putting a stub in here. We now apply our own custom context menu that only shows relevant commands, which are OverrideAudit commands only. In order to make this more seamless, commands have been modified so that their description methods know if they should include the audit, prefix or not. They will not, when used in a view, in a report, pardon me, but they will in other cases. We can go with a little bit of that and save that. Now I think all of these things were the things changing. So what we also need to do here is go to changelog and this. Here, say reports now use a custom context menu that's less cluttered. Okay, that's for the message when it's actually installed. I didn't actually put this in here, right? We'll put it here. All reports now use a custom context menu to display, only, I should have some sort of proper rulers in this thing. They don't, right? Yeah, they're way out there, but it's not what I like to use. Uh, so that working in them for users that use context menu is nicer. And we'll go ahead and just cram those two things into this as well, the changelog and that one, and amend the previous commit. Like so. That's something that could be controlled by a setting if we want to. If a user wanted to not have that happen, all we have to do is not provide that setting. That code that we just wrote will automatically not do anything, and life, as it turns out, will be good. We'll see if anybody complains about having a more concise menu. And remember, they can always, there's nothing special about the tab context menu and stuff that we could still have the user create their own override audit menu to add items in if they want to in their user package. It still remains fully customizable, just like everything else. So let's check out pre this. And what would we actually do? Merge this bad boy in? Is that what we've been doing here? Let's turn off that one just to see. What the hell is this thing? Oh, patch files. That's a branch that's turned off, right? Yeah. Let's hide stashes for a second too, because that'll make life a little bit nicer. I have not been doing that apparently. All right then. Merge context menu changes in. Fast forward merge, boom, and then we can delete context menu changes. Then we need to come back to here and turn all branches back on because we want patch files and refreshing to rebase off of that branch to make sure we have all of the changes. So let's do patch files first because we're not going to do anything with that. Rebase patch files onto, and oh man, this is so amazingly fast, partially because this repository is a nice, tight, small repository, and partly because this is Linux. Over there on that computer, I do a lot of work in Merge on Windows in a mono repo that has like 90 projects in it, plus documentation for said project. And they have all sorts of weird Git hooks running in a variety of ways. A simple rebase operation like that can easily take 5 minutes. And it tends to fail because it's running scripts in the background and as a part of Git hooks that are trying to pass the name of every modified file, and so many files are changed so frequently because there's so many projects in the same repository that they go over the limit of how big a command line can be in Windows. It's a big pain in the butt. Anyway, that is neither here nor there. Freshen. Oh, that would be. Yeah, I see. That is the file that we're going to be unhappy about, right? So let us do a little bit of this. CD source commands and MB freshen all. Do a little bit of that. Okay, so we can. I want to keep that file around. We are in patch files. We want to rebase. Oh, wait, did that actually do what I expected? No. Oh, I see. It never got that far. Phew. Okay. Then we rebase this onto here. Rebase refreshing onto. Oh wait. Why do I have one unstaged file? Oh, that's the untracked file whose name is Crunk. Cool. Okay. So rebase that onto here so that it Comes up nicely. So there's the pre-version, and here's a bunch of refreshing code. This is an example of something we'll probably merge in and not just fast forward commit, because there's a lot of stuff here, but all those other changes were single commits. It's probably why I did that way. And now, file is the same, freshen all.py.before. Don't need that version anymore. We don't need that anymore either. Okay, now, does that actually appear in a menu? In the tab context, it has a freshen all. Is this displaying? No. Oh, I guess it needs to have an out of date thing to be able to actually do something, right? Okay. Touch, paste from history. Really? Did I do it in the wrong order? Oh, it's mine's date. Pardon me. Okay, so, oh, look how out of date that is. And also it's purple instead of red, but what can you do? So, fresh and expired overrides in default. Hey, neat. Oh, its description. Hmm. Freshen all command. It's been a bit since I looked at this. Override audit freshen all. That's in this menu, right? That one. Group -1. Always visible false. I do not see any. Yeah, there's just the refresh override. Oh, no. That may only be. When is this thing actually enabled? Only for override reports. A package needs to be expired. I don't know about that. Refresh overrides report expired only. Dun, 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 dun. Fresh. Okay, let's actually read the thing, right? Freshen all the expired overrides and all packages represented in the current report so that it's no longer considered expired. This does what the override audit freshen package command does, but for all packages and not just the one under the cursor. So it's either not doing anything or I can't tell if it's what this one was actually supposed to do, to be perfectly honest. Let's take a look at the thing there, shall we? Starting from, I don't know, there. Freshen all expired overrides. Oh, from the command palette, it should do something. So, whoops. In this file, it does not appear. And in the context menu, it appears. In the main menu, it appears. In the tab context menu, it appears. Oh, we may need to do that because we were fiddling with the state of things. So maybe we should quit and restart to make absolutely for sure that things are in the state to which we would expect. Okay, so freshen all expired unchanged overrides. That's this one, right? Come on, let me scroll. Override audit, freshen all expired unchanged overrides. It doesn't appear in that menu, but it does appear in this menu. I might need to go over that code a little bit more to remind myself of exactly what that thing is doing. Because it should be appearing inside of one of these menus. Oh, yeah, I know why it's not in this menu. Stoopnagle, because if we looked at context menu, and then we looked at over menu, it needs to actually be in here for it to actually appear in this menu. Okay, forgot about that one. So in this report, it shouldn't have the prefix, but in there it should. So that method does in fact need to have the appropriate thing in it, and that's going to look a little something like this. We need to call self.caption. Find the description method. We need that. Text is equal to that. And then we return self.caption gripes text and star kwrgs thus. And now freshen all expired unchanged overrides. There are no unchanged expired overrides to freshen. You're right, that is in fact not unchanged. So that's even working as expected. The idea behind this particular command is if you had an override for something that was expired but nothing was done in it. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and test that theory. We go like this. We choose some file like this one. This is not currently a file, so we go ahead and say OverrideAudit, override this resource. So now it is an override, like so. So now we can diff it, revert it, delete it, blah, blah, blah. So we go like that, hit this. This needs to be not just expired. So let's go ahead and do another one with override report. Now, if we just did an override report specifically, which is this one, and they don't show up all in the same place in the list, which is kind of funky. That's weird. We could see that going on there. Now, if we were to say override report for exclude unchanged, the thing that we just did, we compare as we dare here. That's the override report. Let's go ahead and close some of these files. We're getting a little bit of a overload here. We don't care about that one. We don't care about that one. Leave that one. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one too. Okay, so if we just did an override report here. Oh, it's reusing the view. Right, okay. We diff add line, no differences are found, right? If we diff add line before, so no differences are found. So if we do the override report and say exclude unchanged, then those two files disappear from the thing, right? I'm going to go ahead and bulk diff this file so we can see that no differences are found between those two things. Then we come over to here and we say, we have to go to the package directory, go to the default, oops, cd to the default directory, pardon me, and then touch, what's the name of that thing, for example? Let's say add line dot sublime macro date equals 10 years ago. So now if I refresh this, that bad boy is out of date there, if we will. It was last updated in 2010, but the version in the shipped package is 2020, so this is definitely a problem, but it has nothing in it. Now, if I do this and say fresh and all expired, unchanged overrides, this is why this isn't done. It has to do a lot more stuff to actually tell you what it is it's actually going to do. I'm going to say confirm freshen, yes, and that one we see that mark went away, and if we looked in the console, it freshened add line before. So it automatically did that for only that one. This other file up here is out of date because it's also 10 years old, but it's not unchanged, so it was left alone. This is one of those features that was requested by someone in the Discord, and I've been sitting on it for a little bit of time. So it's time to get that business out there. So that is what that's doing, and then it tells me there aren't any, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that one and delete that one. Just to be able to do that. And let's also freshen this one because we don't need to be harassed by that particular thing. So we came back to here. One more commit for this one. And this is one where we can stage that, and then say add new menu, new custom context menu for fresh and all. Just to remind me, and that is an example of one that you don't need to see me actually type in here because that is not at all interesting, one would imagine. I can go ahead and do that part later. So we have reached the end of the stream. We actually got, I'm surprised that took a couple of hours, but there was a lot of, thinking of how things should work and that weirdness of errors in the description method being swallowed. And I would imagine again that there's something, if we were to look in the Sublime plugin.py or the Sublime.py, probably I can't remember which one of those it would be in, the wrapper around the description method is, I think, probably capturing, doing a try thing there, and it returns. As a matter of fact, I believe I just saw that the other day. Um, the default implementation of that, not the default. Then the command class has its own method in there that Sublime calls, which calls into your method. And if your method returns none or an empty string, it returns an empty string back, which signals to the core that it should use the full command name in there, as we saw. And it also, I think, has some exception handling to make sure that that method always returns a value, and it returns an empty string in that case. So it's swallowing exceptions. It could return and rethrow or print a stack trace or something. Anyway, we did get that all done and operational, and I think, as far as I know, we should be good to go for live streams for the foreseeable future. I'm planning again this year on doing a Devember project and trying to live stream it every night of December. So we'll see how that goes. Um, we might have to have some days in there that are not so that I have time to do video prep, but we'll see what happens. But I will try to schedule out the next series of live streams on the channel. And if you subscribe and ring the bell notification icon, then YouTube will tell you when I am going live. And of course, I also have another channel linked down in the description of all of these live stream videos where we do weekly Sublime Text tutorial videos. We're currently working on plugin 101 over there right now, focusing in on doing all of the stuff like we're doing here, but in a more focused tutorial type manner. So if that's interesting to you, you might want to head on over there, use the button, subscribe and share, ring the bell notification icon. That way, YouTube will definitely tell you when new videos become available, and you can be watching them right away and learn all of the cool information. And until that next one, this is going to be OdatNurd asking you to please have a sublime day. And good night, Katrina. Thanks for watching.